Another Democrat at the state capitol is leaving right after re-election, letting party insiders pick her replacement. Maybe this is what finally causes the frequently used vacancy system to be reconsidered.
I agree, the very best decision makers to choose the representatives have to be the voters.
An audit says Denver's homelessness program has some serious issues. The people who failed to get Coloradans to ban big cat hunting are prepared to try again. And keeping Coloradans warm this winter, in memory of a friend.
We're all just people. We're all just, in this battle together.
All that tonight on Next. Is this thing on? Very good. Welcome to Next. Glad you found us for our first streaming-only episode. Avs are playing on 9 News and KTVD tonight. Hey, just a good reminder, you can find us streaming every weeknight at 6 o'clock right here. So let's get to the news. Another Democrat at the state capitol is bailing on their job right after re-election. Senator Janet Buckner from Aurora is resigning, says she wants to prioritize her family and her health. She follows Senator Chris Hansen of Denver out the revolving door, which is then going to spin in a hand-picked replacement from party insiders. Even defenders of this process tell politics guy Marshall Zellinger this isn't working.
I agree, the very best decision makers to choose the representatives have to be the voters.
And yet, in January, 1 in 5 Colorado state lawmakers will have entered the building at some point in their career not by voters, but by being appointed by a vacancy committee. Today, Democratic State Senator Janet Buckner announced she will resign in January. She won re-election 2 weeks ago. So did Democratic State Senator Chris Hansen, who will also leave in January. Both seats will be filled by a small group of Democratic Party leaders, made up of, well, here's Democratic Party Chair Shad Murib's best explanation.
So a vacancy committee is chosen by any member of a political party that shows up to its party's reorganization, which happens every 2 years. They can get elected to be a chair, a vice chair, or a secretary of each Senate district or House district. You can also be elected as a precinct organizer, and those folks are also included in the vacancy committee, as well as elected officials within that jurisdiction.
The short version of that is not voters, just really engaged party leaders. Colorado is one of 5 states that uses vacancy committees to appoint replacements for state lawmakers who resign. Half of the country conducts special elections. No state does what Democratic State Representative Bob Marshall wants to do, prevent whoever is appointed from running in that district's next election.
So whoever is appointed into that, no, they would not be able to run in 26. But they would be able to run in 28 for that next election.
He tried that bill earlier this year, which went nowhere. And if he gets it through the legislature, voters would have to approve it too. In the meantime, Murib is trying to push back on concerns that vacancy committees simply fill a lawmaker's vacant seat with whoever that lawmaker wanted to take over.
So long as I'm chair, we are going to work to make sure that there is never a situation in which people can use this process to either rig or otherwise try to make the process work for their chosen successor.
I haven't even mentioned the Republican side of this because there is a Republican state senator, Kevin Van Winkle, who will have a vacant seat when he submits his resignation letter at some point because he just got elected to the Douglas County Commissioners. Can't have both jobs at the same time. He's leaving, although he had half of his term served, and he's leaving with 2 years left, a little different than getting reelected and then saying, peace out, with 4 years.
It's the right after re-election thing, right? I mean, I think people understand things come up in the middle of terms. People have health issues. Their families have health issues. But I think what steams people's beans is when you say, please re-elect me, and then like a week or two later, you're like, JK, I'm out.
Right. I've talked with Shad and others about this. Like in these 2 cases with Hansen and with Buckner, could they have told voters along the way, look, I do have other priorities. If you elect me, maybe I won't be there. Like, could you be transparent? Or I'm trying to get a job in the La Plata CEO, like that kind of transparency. Or would that, I guess you could argue, I don't have another job. I don't have nothing else yet. Mm-hmm. Until I do, I'm just going to keep going forward. So it's a little, because you're a public leader being elected, I think the rules are slightly different where it's like, look, if you're really not going to be there, just tell us.
Yeah. You tell me if you were looking for another job, right?
Is this a public opportunity here?
That's not a yes or a no. I would tell you for the record. Thank you, Marshall. Democratic Secretary of State Jenna Griswold is facing the same questions that she got here on Next weeks ago about her office's leak of voting system passwords. This time she's getting questioned by Democrats and Republicans at the state legislature, and they don't seem all that satisfied with her answers. Griswold testified before the state's Joint Budget Committee this afternoon. Got questions about how one of her staffers posted the passwords online for months, sitting on a hidden tab on her website, and why Griswold did not notify county clerks or the public until after the Colorado GOP learned of the leak and alerted everyone. Last week, the GOP also posted an excerpt of a call where Griswold's deputy, Chris Beal, said that the office withheld information about the leak from clerks because they didn't want to, quote, create a media firestorm. Now, Griswold's maintained that her office was waiting to notify those clerks until they knew the full scope of the leak. She repeated that at the state capitol today.
If you weren't outed by an outside group, would you have ever notified the clerks?
Secretary Griswold.
Yes. And would that have been within 2 days, 3 days, or a week? Like, when would it have been?
To be very clear, there was not an immediate security threat. We have multiple layers of security, and we needed to gather the information about the scope of the issue, and we're still actively gathering that information at the time that the issue became public.
Was the plan to contact the clerks once you had determined the scope of that breach? Secretary Griswold.
We were planning to determine the entire scope and then determine what our next steps would be.
State employees changed those passwords for the impacted voting machines just before Election Day, while early voting was already happening. Griswold and county election workers have said there was no impact on the election because the passwords are just one part of a multi-layer security system. The Denver DA's office is investigating the breach, and Griswold's office also brought in a third-party law firm to investigate after the governor publicly disagreed with her suggestion here that they just investigate themselves. Denver's auditor says the city's homeless shelter program is full of security concerns and mismanagement. This is the mayor's signature All in Denver program. The auditor pointed out something that we've been reporting for months. Nobody knows for sure how much this program is costing taxpayers. Auditor Tim O'Brien says the city and the Department of Housing Stability are doing such a poor job tracking the costs of Denver's shelter program that he had to do his own math for the audit. He estimates the city spent $150 million on 25 homeless shelters from 2022 to March of this year, not including the emergency shelters for migrants. The audit also raised concerns about poor security at the shelters, like the former Doubletree on Quebec, where 2 people were shot and killed in March.
I think the homeless population are a vulnerable population. They might need more and do need more protection than maybe a guest at a hotel. You know, you need locked doors at a hotel. With the homeless, I mean, you know, they're vulnerable and people will go after them.
We should note the city did increase security there following that shooting. The audit highlights other issues as well, like insufficient anti-discrimination policies and improper storage of sensitive information about residents. The city agreed to implement most of the auditor's suggestions to better track spending and other data, but the city and the mayor's office both told us that the audit's numbers are outdated and said that the audit ignores some recent improvements. Coloradans have repeatedly been asked to decide wildlife policy on the ballot. First, of course, it was wolf reintroduction. Most recently, a big cat hunting ban. A group of parks and wildlife employees hopes to head off future ballot measures on wildlife and leave the decisions to the experts at the state level. But the group behind the last one that failed, the big cat hunting ban, they tell our Evan Krugel they're ready to try again.
Colorado ballot boxes have become a popular place to decide wildlife issues, from bringing back wolves to a recent proposal to ban the hunting of mountain lions and bobcats.
It was surprising. We were all surprised that we didn't win.
Julie Marshall's proposal with Cats Aren't Trophies failed by about 300,000 votes, but she believes it was close enough to send a message to Colorado Parks and Wildlife.
Over 1 million voters said yes. We said that is nothing to sneeze at.
Marshall believes the controversy surrounding the wolf reintroduction approved by voters in 2020 played a role, along with a resolution from a group of CPW workers led by Casey Westbrook asking for wildlife decisions to be left to the professionals.
Folks have learned that there's a lot more complexity than what can just be put in a few sentences on the ballot.
Westbrook says he was relieved the proposal failed. Now he's calling for an end to future wildlife-related ballot measures.
The further you move toward the ballot initiative process, the further you move away from the ability of the experts in the field to have their input. Not everybody can be an expert in everything, right? I don't try and tell my surgeons how to do surgery on me, right?
But Mitchell argues her group tried to go through CPW commissioners and even legislators before turning to the ballot.
We thought long and hard about a ballot measure, and we felt like because we exhausted the system, it was our only chance. I think the key is we care, and that's a beautiful thing when people care. So I would say when people care, you should support that, not try to shut it down.
She's hopeful CPW will dive deeper into the legality of using dogs to hunt lions, and says if they don't, Coloradans may get another crack at it in November.
Anything's possible.
For Next, I'm Evan Krugel.
Democratic Congresswoman Yadira Caraveo is closing out her career with one of her signature moves, breaking with the vast majority of Democrats to back a Republican bill without explanation. Today, she was one of just 15 Dems to side with Republicans to give the federal government broad power to target nonprofits claiming that they support terrorism. Democrats have said the incoming Trump administration could abuse that to go after opponents. Caraveo and House Republicans were successful in passing that bill today, which would allow the Treasury Department to unilaterally declare a nonprofit as a supporter of terrorism, then strip its tax status. Nonprofits have warned that that power could easily be used and abused for political purposes, and they say it creates an uncertain future for charities, universities, media outlets, the list goes on. Colorado's House delegation voted along party lines, except for Caraveo, who also broke with her party this fall to support a messaging bill by Republicans to condemn Kamala Harris over immigration. That bill still has to clear the Senate, where it's not clear if a few Democrats from the current majority will join Republicans to pass it. We asked Caraveo's team to share why she voted for the bill. They did not respond. Tonight's next question comes from the Next staff, us. Since this is our first streaming-only episode, does that mean we can cuss? I mean, I'm talking about like the real top shelf swear words, the stuff that the FCC doesn't like. Can we? That's a great question, team. So for the answer, we reached out to our boss, executive producer Nathan Higgins. No is what he said. That was the entire answer. Did not elaborate beyond that. Just no. I will say this, he's always very clear and direct in his leadership style. Well, that's unfortunate, but we're going to make the best of it. Hey, if you're streaming us tonight through 9 News Plus or on 9news.com, I would love to hear from you directly. I'm curious, do you watch this way often? Are you in the Denver area? Are you someplace else? Because we know that there are a number of folks who stream Next from out of state. Also, if there was one curse word that I could say tonight on TV or streaming or whatever this is, what curse word would you choose? You don't have to answer that if you don't want, but truly do. Hit me up during the show. Email next@9news.com. Text next at 303-871-1491. Tell us how you got here and how often you are here. And with all the profanity we now need to take out of the show, we're going to have extra time for your feedback at the end. So tonight is the night that families in Denver learn whether their protests worked or whether their schools will close. And if you want to feel all warm and fuzzy this holiday season, consider giving the gift of warmth to some of our neighbors. That's next. Welcome back to our streaming-only, still profanity-free episode of Next. Tonight, the school board in Denver's largest school district, Colorado's largest school district, will decide whether to close 7 schools and restructure 3 others. DPS has heard from upset families who have said these closures are rushed, unfair, unjust. They feel they will disproportionately affect communities of color in low-income parts of town. Today, the group Movimiento Poder rallied outside DPS headquarters. Superintendent Alex Marrero says the closures are needed due to lower enrollment and will save the district $30 million. We'll have the results from tonight's board vote on 9 News at 9 and 10. Meteorologist Lauren Robinson, welcome to the stream. Life in the stream. Still profanity-free, I must warn you.
All right, happy to be here. I'll make sure to keep that in mind as I go through the rest of this forecast. Well, it's going to be pretty easy as we go through the next few days. We're going to see temperatures above average. We're going to be approaching 70 degrees at one point. Right now, though, 40 at DIA. A little bit of cloud cover, but pretty dry. Winds coming in from the south at around 10 miles per hour. As we monitor our live radar, we have this ridge of high pressure over the central portions of the U.S., but off across the Pacific Northwest, this is where we're looking for our next system to move move its way eastward and bring a little bit of weather into Colorado. That won't be until next week, though. As we go into the rest of the evening tonight, we're going to see some chilly overnight lows, but nothing unseasonably low. We're going to see 20s and 30s across most of the state with some teens up in the high country. And then tomorrow afternoon, those temperatures rising into the low 60s across the majority of the Front Range and Eastern Plains with some 50s up in the mountains. So take a look at the next few days. We're going to get warm and warmer. We're in the 60s for our Friday. We're approaching 70 degrees by Saturday. Next week is when that next system slowly moves in. We have some slight rain and snow chances Sunday and Tuesday. We're looking for a potential impact day on Wednesday, and that's going to do to maybe some impacted traffic before Thanksgiving. We're looking for a rain-snow mix to become a little bit stronger there.
No matter what circumstances lead to a person becoming homeless, at the end of the day, we all need to be warm.
Community Coat Drive is helping people living on the streets around here make it through the winter. That's next. Some of your streaming stories and some of your curse word suggestions are top-notch. Please stick around for that and feedback. First, though, if you're going to stop by Chicago's on Colfax, grab a hot dog, bring along an extra coat if you can, because each year the Coats for Colfax Drive collects the gear that people living on the streets need to make it through the winter.
At the end of the day, we're all humans, we're all people. Everybody has certain needs, and one of them is to be warm.
Hi guys, how are you? We're doing a Coats for Colfax, second annual Coats for Colfax drive.
We have several hats, coats, gloves, hand warmers. We're even collecting dog food.
I think it's awesome. Last year we did a hell of a job on it.
My name is Sarah Schroeder. I try to be very involved in the Colfax community and helping people out. Last year, I had a friend by the name of Jimmy Getch. He was a member of the homeless community here in the Colfax area. He ended up passing away from frostbite complications. And later in the year, we decided to do the coat drive for him.
We got so many coats that it was overrunning my office. Here's your drink, Christy.
This year, we are honoring a man named Craig Bruce. Craig Bruce was also a member of the homeless community in the Colfax area, and he tragically lost his life way too soon.
We recognize that these are people.
They don't have the right coats, they don't have socks, they don't have ways to keep them warm.
You don't know what their situations may be and doesn't really matter, but they are human beings.
No matter what circumstances lead to a person becoming homeless, at the end of the day, we all need to be warm. We just have to have compassion for this people. Even if we don't agree with their life choices, we're all just people. We're all just, in this battle together.
It's not just coats. You can drop off any warm weather gear there. Chicago's on West Colfax is taking donations through Christmas Eve. We are back with your feedback about streaming and cursing. What I've read is amazing. Marilyn has more. Get your popcorn ready. Feedback next. Thanks for floating down the stream with us tonight. Glenn on Blue Sky says, hey, bud, watch almost daily on the stream. He says, you freaking rock, and Marshall's a damn bulldog of a journalist. Not sure, he says, if you want me to serve up a curse word. I think you did, Glenn. Janae's streaming just writes, I'm a millennial. I love your curse word suggestion. I can't say that. Dennis is streaming from the Chicago suburbs. Allison and Rob in Golden. Barbara up in Thornton streams because her antenna isn't always good. Craig in Arvada is on board. Asked for the F word. You know I can't give you that. Nicole says she's been streaming Next for 3 years now. This is one of my favorites of the night. She says, my 7-year-old heard your request for a curse word. Sorry about that. And the 7-year-old said, can I whisper it in your ear? It's amazing. I'm not going to say the word. It's also a word that I don't let my kids say. It's not that bad of a word, but it's more fun if it's a mystery. See you next time.